The San Antonio Mennonite Church is Anabaptist, which is a reference to a theological protest about 500 years ago, essentially rooted in the understanding that all of our theology must be lived theology. Everything we understand about God and Jesus must be reflected in the way we live and journey. All of our prayer must be balanced with actions, and all of our actions must be steeped in prayer. Our community is centered in hospitality and healing, pilgriming and peacemaking. And it's a long journey home, but we're all walking home together in the peace of Christ. Good morning from the San Antonio Mennonite Church. I'm John on this spectacular Sunday morning. Sadly, we're meeting virtually this morning. We're not together with one another in person, but I think it's an important thing to do. This week, so many of our church members either had positive COVID tests or were directly exposed, and I think it's good to take some real intentional time to figure out what these next steps are going to be and how we can keep each other safe. When one of my favorite moments of the week, we were reading Psalm 77 together. It was early in the morning. It was Friday morning. We were praying Psalm 77. This is the psalm that Mark quotes as Jesus walks across the water. It's the psalm where it says, your path was across the waters, your way was over the chaos. My favorite part of that psalm is near the beginning where the psalmist is praying, I can't sleep. I'm so scared and I'm so hurt. But I remember my night song. I love that line. I remembered my night song. There's a song for me for the dark night. There is a song that I can sing even in the scariest and hardest places. A song for us. Isn't that astounding? Isn't that beautiful? We all have a song that we can sing together in the night and in the morning. We call this the peace of Christ. The peace that we experience beyond our own understanding. A peace that we don't earn. A peace that we don't buy, a peace that we receive, and we can sing with it, and we can pass it on to one another and into this world. So let's do that now. Let's begin. Go into the chat feature there on this stream and pass the peace of Christ to one another.
Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. You will find rest for your soul. You will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest.
Before I get started, I wonder if y'all remember a few years ago
when a fox in our neighborhood blew up on social media. Everyone was posting about this gray fox they'd seen around the fire station here, and then our church on the corner right here by St. Mary's. It was really lovely. A few folks posted pictures in the local neighborhood feed. And then that week, I remember I got a really sad text message from Patricia Castillo. Patricia runs the Peace Initiative. It's a domestic abuse response organization out of our church. That same lovely week, Patricia texted me that coming into the church that morning, she'd found a fox. It was on the church grounds, and it had 2 broken legs. It looked like, she said, that it had been hit by a car. And she couldn't get close to it because every time she tried, it would pull itself away with using its front legs. And she said that it had pulled itself into the crawl space under the sanctuary. I'm sorry to open with this. The image hurt my heart so much, because here was a woman who spends every day receiving survivors of domestic abuse. All day she receives women who are hurt by the ones who should love them. And I could just see her there in the presence of this injured, beautiful animal in so much fear and so much pain. But her next message snapped me out of it. She wrote, "Should we get dog food or cat food? What do you think?" I mean, I was at first thinking, what a tragedy. And she was thinking, how will we help her heal? And for the next few weeks, I would come into the church and I would see a half-eaten bowl of dog food and a water bowl at the opening to the crawl space that now no one wanted to repair. And that injured fox got a name. I saw a tragedy, and she saw a break in the wall where we needed to put bowls of sustenance out. About a year later, a pipe broke under the sanctuary, and we had to shut off the water and crawl in under that wall and into this maze-like space to find the leak and to patch it. And I'll be honest, I was pretending not to be claustrophobic. I was pretending not to be scared. And then my headlamp came across a deep, round divot. And in it was matted gray fur. And then there was another hole just a little ways away with this, gross food-looking detritus. And I later Googled fox den. And this is the precise image that came up. The birthing cave and the food cache. And by what I could see, it was dark and not a lot of space. But what I could see, we were about in the middle of the sanctuary, just under the cross. And here was evidence that the injured fox hadn't just survived, she had given birth. Now, I was trying to be cool. I was crawling with a retired plumber and another tough dude, but I was having this welling emotion. The fox didn't just live. I could see where she curled up and nursed. And here is the mat of fur and the mother love bank of food. I held a headlamp, but can't you imagine the birth pangs in the pitch black maze with her broken legs? But some bowl of nourishment and water that kept filling every morning, it had given her the strength to pull herself to that nourishment. It smelled like Patricia, but it was steady and it was good. It smelled like a scary human, but she had the strength. And here's what's crazy. Here's what's crazy. Every early morning in our neighborhood, every early morning before the sun goes up, every evening after the sun goes down, walk the neighborhood and you will see a fox. I mean, they're all over our neighborhood now. That litter of foxes is thriving here in Southtown. They're sleek and they're fast down in the growth by the river. They're posing in all their gray loveliness by the fire station. One was standing on the church steps Thursday night at 9 p.m. Her long tail was brushing up against the potted flowers. And when I see them, I always pretend that they're gonna give me a message. And I say, hey, I know where you were born. I bring all this up. I say all this because a few years ago, all I could see was a tragedy, a broken fox dying in pain. But Patricia instead asked, dog food or cat food? Now, the way Matthew tells it, Jesus started his teaching in a similar way. All the world wanted to talk about the pain and the injustice. They wanted to talk about the horror and the oppression. They were asking the question, how will we win? How will we beat it? How will the Messiah fix all of our problems? But instead, Jesus begins by saying, this is what is blessed. Blessed are the. This is how Jesus begins teaching. Blessed are the. Now, blessed is not the same as #blessed. Blessed does not mean look at all the great things that are happening for me. Jesus begins all teaching by saying, look at what God is close to. This is what blessed means. Look at what God is close to. Not look at who is rocking it. Not looking at who is decorated and celebrated. Not look at who is comfortable. Jesus starts teaching by saying, look at who God is close to. Blessed in English. Makarios in Greek. That's the Greek word Matthew used. Asherah in Hebrew. It's the word that's used in all of the Psalms, the prayer book Jesus used. Blessed. It means God is close. And I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm not talking about the power of positive self-talk. I'm talking about the truth of what God is close to. Jesus starts his teaching by saying, blessed are. God is close to these. God is close to the poor, the mourning, the meek, the hungry, the merciful, the peace farmers, the persecuted, the insulted. God is close to these. Ashura, blessed, Makarios. All through the Psalms, Jesus' prayer book, all through the Psalms, God is leaning down to these. God is inclining an ear to these, reaching a hand into the muck and the mire for these, carrying these, singing to these. Blessed are these. This is not positive thinking. I'm not talking about the power of positive self-talk. I'm talking about what is blessed, what God is close to. When I was a teenage boy, something devastating happened to me, as something devastating happens to all of us when we are teenagers. And I was not, in this moment, I was not tough enough, and I wasn't whatever enough. And I went to my mother's arms weeping. And I was embarrassed that I was weeping. But I was weeping. My mother didn't say to me, it's going to be okay. This is what I remember. My mother did not say to me, it's going to be okay. She was honest. She did not say to me, let's think positively, you're going to make it. My mother just held me and she said, I'm right here. I mean, I can remember the moment and the place. I can remember the feeling like it was 5 minutes ago. She held me and said, I'm right here. Because what else can a mama say to a hurting child? It's echoing so powerfully what God says. I am right here. That is what blessed means. And this is how Jesus starts all teaching. Recognize the blessed. Recognize where God is close. Matthew records it like this. And Jesus teaches the crowd on the mountain. God is close to the poor, the mourning, the meek, the hungry. God is right next to the merciful, the peace farmers. God is holding on to the persecuted and the insulted. This is how Jesus starts teaching. Get this first. Look at where God is close. Seek where God hangs out. They're called the Beatitudes, the blessing definitions. Matthew chapter 5. There's another take of them in Luke chapter 6. Get this first, Jesus seems to say. Focus first on where God is. What is God holding on to? There's a famous theologian. A famous theologian who is maybe not the best writer of theology. I mean, he was smart. He went to a lecture of the most famous theologian of the day, Karl Barth, and he asked some amazing questions. But it's hard to find a serious scholar who would say that this German young man was a great academic theologian. But I have his picture on my wall, and many others do too, because he asked about blessedness. He was a German scholar. He was a student who left Europe to go to Harlem and study the spiritual praise songs of enslaved peoples in the Americas. This young German student, he was riveted and he was engrossed by these songs, these spirituals. And he left the center of scholarship and went to hear the songs of suffering and liberation, these night songs, as Psalm 77 calls them. In the deepest darkness of hurt and pain and dehumanization, this is how we sing about God's presence and God's embrace and God's closeness. This is how we sing about blessedness. Well, this young scholar from Germany was engrossed. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. There in this young German man in Harlem studying the spirituals, he said all theology, this is what I remember from seminary, all theology begins in silence. He said, isn't that good? It's a place of listening. Let me listen to the song. Let me look to where God is. Jesus begins all teaching this way. Look at what is blessed. Look at where God is close. There's a record of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's letters. When the Nazis took over his home, when they turned his home church into a weapon of the fascist state, you can read what he wrote. You can read what the most famous theologian of the day, Karl Barth, wrote. He said, Karl Barth writes to Dietrich Bonhoeffer and says, stay away. Stay in America. Stay away from Germany. You can never go home. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer went home. He left Harlem. He left Harlem and that beautiful music, and he went home to Berlin and the center of war and the center of fascism and fearful hatred and the weaponization of religion. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer started a seminary. He started a seminary to study Christology. Who is Christ? What a bold and crazy thing to do. Where is Christ? What a powerful question. With swastika flags now folded over the altars in his home churches, Dietrich Bonhoeffer asked, who is Christ really? Where is God close? The seminary started was illegal, and then it was underground. And then the question, who is Christ really close to, that led to his arrest. But in prison, though, have you heard the stories? He still led songs, and the other prisoners loved him. And he kept writing letters. They're beautiful letters. They're lovely letters. The fascists killed him in the prison, but don't you see all the beautiful little foxes populating the neighborhood? But they all seem to ask the same question. His friends, his church, his little seminary, it birthed this movement asking the question that cannot be stopped. Where is God close? Who is God close to? And I don't mean who is happy, who is doing well. I don't mean the folks who can muster the energy to say it's going to be all right. I mean who can hear the voice of God holding them and saying, I'm right here. Blessed, Makarios, Ashura, I'm right here. What if we could start learning and seeing from that perspective? What if we could begin all learning from that perspective? God saying, I'm right here. Let me try another angle. I had a week where racism and hatred and meanness was palpably obvious. There was a moment this week when some families that our church was hosting, migrants who had escaped horror upon horror and miraculously made it to our door, they were treated with so much meanness. They were treated with so much meanness. They had to do a necessary COVID quarantine in a hotel room. But then the manager of the hotel saw them and saw their state and saw that some of them were missing legs from horrific traumas on the road north. And the hotel manager kicked them out on the street. I showed up in the middle of the afternoon and saw them with all their bags. He said, we can't keep folks like you here. I was so angry. I was just raging with the injustice. And the timing made it impossible, and there was no other safe place to take them. The timing was awful. Here are these vulnerable families with all of their worldly possessions on the sidewalk, rejected. I was so angry. And I fed off of that rage for the next few hours, seeking option after option, trying to figure things out. What a scary time we live in. We live in a time that's so tenuous, and kindness seems so fragile. It was late when they were safe and comforted. And it's a good thing that our church can help such vulnerable families that would otherwise be alone. It's good that we can help. And someone from our church made them dinner. And this person plated and wrapped this perfect meal, and I was so angry still and so tired. And she handed me the plates, and she said, she knew the whole story. Take this to them. I was all wrapped up in the meanness and the racist comments and the anger, and she said, here, take a little extra salt. She said, that's what Jesus said, right? Take some salt into this world. She had one of those extra little salt packets. She said, be the salt in the mean, dark world. Don't you see how true that is? Don't you see how salt just makes you super aware of all the other flavors? How salt makes you know how close the other flavors are. I don't completely understand the biochemistry, but do you know what it feels like to be weeping in the arms of your mother who says, I'm right here? That's the message I hear when someone says, carry the salt. It's just a tiny little package. It's just a simple thing to say. Carry the salt, she said. Focus on what is blessed. And bring the sustenance. Put the bowl out. Here's a meal that you can take, it's good. Should we get cat food or should we get dog food for the injured fox? What if we could do that every day? What if we could say, I want to learn from the Savior, so let me start by looking at the blessed. Where is God close? Where are the Makarios, the poor, the mourning, the meek, the hungry, the merciful, the peace farmers, the persecuted, the insulted? Let me listen there. Let me taste there. Lord, let me see there. What if the fox, broken-legged and hurt, is carrying the pups in her belly that will populate the neighborhood? And what if the right questions, the righteous questions, will stand beyond all the fascist war machines can muster? And what if the world feels too mean and too much, but you have a little salt? What if your tears will be answered by that beautiful voice saying, I'm right here? This is good news. This is good news. The poor, the mourning, the meek, the hungry, the merciful, the peace farmers, the persecuted, the insulted. The good news is that God says, I'm right here. This is blessed. Amen.
Me ha mostrado el Señor, lo que es bueno y lo que pide Él de mí. Hacer justicia, misericordia y ser humilde ante Él. God has shown you, oh people, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. And to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Me ha mostrado el Señor, lo que es bueno y lo que pide Él de mí. Hacer justicia, misericordia y ser humilde ante Él. God has shown you, oh people, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. But to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God.
My shepherd will supply my need. Jehovah is his name. In pastures fresh, makes me flee beside the living stream. Thy hand in sight of all my foes, that's still my table spread, my cup with blessing overflows. Thine oil on my head. When I walk through the shades of death, thy presence is my strength. One word of thine, supporting breath, drying all my fears away. Thy hand inside of all my foes, dost still my table spread, my cup with blessing overflow. Thy oil anoints my head.
Philippians 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice. Let your gentle spirit be known to all people. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and pleading with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if anything worthy of praise, think about these things. As for the things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you.
The sure provision of my God attend me all my days. Oh, may thy house be my abode, and all my words be praised. There would I find
Well, let's tell you what, y'all, that's just my favorite song of all time. I absolutely love that. That's Daryl Adams. He's a good friend of my family. I've heard his voice ever since I can remember hearing voices in this wonderful world. Let's see. I can see you all now. What a strange thing to do, gather virtually like this again, but it's also a gift that we can be close to one another, even in the distance. It's good to see you, Charlie. Peace of Christ to you, and Adele and Harry and Celeste, Dale and Jan, way up north, and Kent. It's good to see you. And Jim and Ruth getting ready for an exciting wedding. It's good to see you. And Ramona, it's so wonderful to have you back from Alice, doing so much caretaking. You've been so loving to so many people. And Mitzi, if you haven't read Mitzi's post about her teacher nightmare, it's really special. Catch up with Mitzi's feed. Sarah, my big sister, out with Dad. Give everyone a big hug from me and the kiddos. Hillary, it's good to see you. And the Millers, Deb, James, Karen, the Logan Bills, y'all up in Kansas, our up north brothers and sisters. And there's Emily and Abby. Happy anniversary, love. We celebrated 16 years this weekend. And Lodi, it's good to see your voice there, and Jim. And Patty, love y'all. You can always see Jim up at the airport. They're so welcoming, doing such good work with the Interfaith Welcome Coalition. Teddy, it's good to see you here. And Rodolfo and Dan up in the hill country, and Ginger and Pat, it's good to see you walking the dog through the neighborhood this morning. Norma, my beloved sister, Norma and Frank down in the valley, such a gift that you were free from COVID. And Marion, our way up north Canadian brothers and sisters, the Snyders, it's great to see you. And at Jackie, it's fun to see your voice there. And then let's take some time to lift up our prayers. Sometimes our candles seem really small and really fragile, and yet they're centered. And they can be blown this way and that. And yet they stay centered in this energy that comes from beyond us, and we can lift up our prayers. Paul says in Philippians, without any anxiety. I think is more along the lines of we release our anxiety, knowing that we all experience it. We release it in these actions of praying. So let's spend some time sharing these requests. Teddy. Asking for prayer. We lift you up, Teddy, in protection, that your heart would be protected, that your spirit would be protected in all that you are called to do. And Danae, this is such a scary time, Danae, and going into this program. And we lift you up in courage and also in healing. And Teddy, you have such a wonderful response there. It's another step forward in a beautiful but messy healing process. And it's true, Danae, that you are a light, and you are deserving, as Teddy writes. And Mariposa, we lift up with you Elise Buckley and John Miranda, that they would be restored to health and balance and protection. And Abby, I see you writing that Aurora, let's see if I don't lose this, my daughter, is giving thanks for community and for family. And Azalea praying for all the sick and all the animals. And yes, optimism and health is going to be a big couple of weeks, y'all. As school gets back started and we get back into this new rhythm of the coming fall. And Gianna, and that we lift up with you, Harry, praying for a negative COVID test for your sweet granddaughter. And also let's lift up Michelle, who has been hospitalized, a friend of Teddy, so scared. We lift her up to you, God. breathe through her and around her and give her strength and healing. And it's a gift, Hillary, that your brother's home from Estonia so far. A gift that he can be back home and close to you and safe. We give thanks. I think a few of us might be Googling Estonia, where precisely that is. I know it's a little east of Georgia, the state. I don't know. Just stop talking right now. Okay. Diana, let's lift up Jody with you undergoing treatment. And also, Diana, we continue to lift you up and specifically your foot, and that you would receive that strength and that healing. And Lodi, this is super exciting. We've been praying with Lodi now for 9 months. I mean, it feels like a gestation. And right as her job came to an end, she was offered a new job as a librarian. Won't Lodi just be such a magnificent librarian? We lift up that praise. And Rita, we lift up with you, Destiny. You've poured so much love into this child's life, into her heart, your warm family. And we lift up Destiny and protection and guidance in this placement. And then Emily, you're also adding there to the prayers and the excitement there. Charlie, we're going to lift up your son, Charlie, who's getting ready to move to Los Angeles. It seems so far away, but also we lift that up. And thank you for the dad jokes. Teddy, I appreciate the moral support there. And we give thanks for community and support, kindness in numerous ways, laughter and friendship, Jean. But specifically, Jean, we lift you up on your birthday. Happy birthday. You are such a joy and such a light. And we're so gifted to celebrate you and celebrate with you. And let's see if I can see. You can keep on adding. You can keep on adding some prayer requests there. And yes, I like Hillary. You're adding the gratitude for those movies and improvised instruments. The gift of community where you can be yourself, who you are truly, and also experimenting with sound and voice and vulnerability. So happy birthday, Jean. We lift up these prayers. Some of them are horrifying. We experienced some miracles this week as a church. A father that we are hosting at La Casa de Maria and Martha, he had a really scary trip to the hospital and had a procedure on his arteries and heart, and he did very well, and he is home with his family. And he is safe. We also lift up all of those migrant families that we are caring for as a community, that they would be safe, even as they have to do all sorts of protocols and COVID. And then also, things have gotten scary in Texas right now. There's been so much division. The governor made a rule about transporting migrants that it has been tremendously difficult. It almost feels like a persecution, actually, of the church and all these organizations that are helping migrants. And that has caused a lot of pain and suffering at the border, and then fear here, even in San Antonio, where organizations are no longer able to help in the same ways that they could. We lift up these prayers. We feel so fragile and we feel so weak. We also feel so joyous and so excited. We feel so grateful and we feel so needy. And we lift it all up. We lift up all of these prayers, represented by little flames, represented by the presence of our spirit joined together with God. Paul says we have this crazy spirit of adoption. It's astounding. There's this spirit of adoption. We don't even understand it. The only way we can respond is just by calling God Abba. And then as we do that, we say, Our Father. As we do that, our spirit bears witness with the spirit of adoption, that we're all in this together, in this family together with God. We pray. God, hold us and hold our prayers. And God, please be near. God, please be near and open our eyes to your nearness. Open our hearts to your nearness. Open our spirits to this miraculous adoption. God, help us to see what is truly blessed. We ask this in the name of Christ. And let me say to y'all, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And may God's face shine on you and give you grace. That's blessedness. May God give you grace. Not to sell yourself short, no matter what the world is saying and the voices are saying, whatever what the liars are saying. You are close to God and God is near. May God give you grace to risk something that's really, really big for something that is good. And may God give you grace to see this world, this crazy world that we live in. It is much too small for anything but the truth and masks when you're inside. And it's much too dangerous for anything but love. This love that comes from God through us. Well, I ask God would take these hands this week, our hands, and work through them, love through them, bless through them, heal through them. And God would take these lips of ours and speak through them. And God would take these miraculous brains that we've been gifted and co-create through them and think through them and love through them. And God would take all of our hearts and set them on fire. In the name of Christ, we pray. And in the name of Christ, we go in peace. Let me see if I can show you this beautiful, lovely view of our, let's see, can I do it? Yes. There we are. Upstairs in our church. I wish we could be together, but alas. We'll sing this last song and feel the presence. Let's see if I can actually figure out how to make the computer work again. You know, sometimes I'm really good at Zoom, and sometimes I'm just the worst. Aha. All right, love you all.
Jesus, be the center, be my source, be my light, Jesus. Jesus, be the center, be my hope, be my sun, Jesus. Be the fire in my heart, be the wind in these sails, be the reason that I live, Jesus, Jesus, be my vision, be my path, be my guide, Jesus. Jesus, be my vision, be my path, be my guide, Jesus. Be the fire in my heart, be the wind in these sails, be the reason